Good morning, fourth graders. I'm here today to answer the age-old question of if standard form and expanded form had a fight, who would win? No, that's not the question I'm going to answer. I'm going to refresh your memory about expanded form, and I'm going to expand your, see how what I did there? Expand your appreciation of the form, because we're going to be, as the rules say, and we are owing all our success to the math rules. Writing expanded form is just writing the number by place value. Nothing more than that. Notice that in my example, I have a standard form of the number 31 and 2/10. And that's the same as 30 plus 1 plus 2/10. That's what our lesson is going to be about today. That's it. That's all. Now you are going to be writing things in different forms, but I think you'll be okay with that. We'll just kind of relearn this together. What do you say? Anyway, let's get started. So, first thing you want to do is identify what these place values are. Just because we need to all be on the same page, that means we have an agreement of what these things mean. So, 30, yep, that's the tens place. 1, that's the ones place. You knew that. And then the kicker is, oh, stop that. Stop that. Thought I put a stop in there. I did not, Mr. C. Okay, and then my 2/10, that is in the tenths place. I want you to take a good hard look at that. Notice that this is a progression. By that, I mean you're going from greatest place value to smallest place value, just like you've done before with whole numbers. So, expanded form is not a big deal. It's nothing to be intimidated by. The only difference this time is we're going to have decimals in the expanded form. I think it'll actually help you understand how these numbers are built. So, moving right along. How do you get 30? That's just 3 times 10. So, in other words, I have 3 tens. How do I get 1? Well, that's just 1 times 1, which is 1, 1. I know, right? How often does that happen? And then I have 2/10. What's that? Well, that's just 2 times 1/10, right? Notice what I've done here. That expanded form is basically like what you did before way back when. And this goes back to like the first month or so of the year. So those of you that are in my class now that weren't in my class in the fall, I trust that you picked this stuff up. I know that the kids that were in my room early on, we actually kind of hit this we kind of hop, skipped, and a jump over this because it was actually stuff you took up really fast, really easy. And this, I'm having these flashbacks. This was when we were still doing the do now, whatnot, the work through, or at least the listings and examples and the answers on my whiteboard on the back of my wall. Think about that for a second. Gosh, it's been a long year. Anyway, so there it is. You've got expanded form. And I've got it spelled out a couple different ways. I've got it spelled out in standard form, and then what's called, I know it's a big word, this is the multiplicative form. What, Mr. C? Multiplicative form? Yeah, in fact, let me double check something here. Okay, so multiplicative form. It's spelled like this, just like it sounds. Oops. Multiplicative. And why, pray tell, do you think we call it that? Well, we call it that. I know, you're guessing in your head. Go ahead. 1, 2, 3, guess. Okay, you guessed. Well, it's because it's got multiplication in it. Yes, it is that obvious. So, that is the multiplicative form. It is still the expanded form. So, it's like got a double name. It's got the multiplicative expanded form. Say that 3 times fast. Okay, don't. You'll probably hurt yourself. Good thing you're home, huh? Anyway, so let's take a look at this. That's 3 tens and 1 1, like I said before, and 2/10. You need to get used to saying these words because I can tell you right now, it's going to happen a multiple of times, and it could be anyone in the room. It could be what you all consider, maybe me too, well, probably me too, are more prolific math students may take a look at this and say, yeah, they'll start calling tens tenths. Just remember, what I referred to earlier, if it has a THS at the end of it, it's a fraction, kind of like fifths and fourths and yes, tooths, which are also known as seconds or halves. And so, yes, there are a couple different fractions that don't have the THS at the end of the name, but they're rare exceptions. So there you go. The point making there, 3 tens, 1 1, and 2 tenths. And just for fun, I rewrote that in yet another form, Mr. C. Okay. Oh, I can already see a problem coming here. I'm going to move something. Hang on. Just be patient. I'm going to have to move my multiplicative form because I do remember this. I added a little something to my presentation here. So we called that the multiplicative form. And yes, I'm going to move the form because it will bug me too if I don't. And there it is. That's the multiplicative form. Okay. This is why I moved it. That's the expanded decimal form. That's the expanded word form. And finally, that's just an E. No, it's not just an E. That's the expanded fraction form. You are going to want to look at this and refer to it often. I mean, it is going to be a PDF file that's always going to be around in my classroom. Once it leaves for the day with our lessons, it then will go into a new folder, which I've already created for Module 6, and you can refer to it any time, or you can download it. I wouldn't recommend in printing it because it's got the yellow background, and it'll want to print the yellow background unless you print in grayscale, which means it'll be some kind of a light gray. Anyway, I digress. So, what I have here in front of me looks a bit confusing, but if you take it top to bottom, step by step, you can see that these are basically all saying the same thing, just in a slightly different way. Decimal form, word form, expanded or fraction form. But they all are the expanded form of the number 31 and 2 tenths. Oh, there's a smiley face in there and there's a multiplicative form. And I'm going to leave it there. Take that, smiley face. Let's look at a second example here. Here's 48 and 7 tenths. So, expanded form. Obviously the 40, I'm convinced you'll get that. And the 8, I know you'll get that too. And I think you'll probably get the 7 tenths too. It's like, okay, Mr. C, I think this is beginning to kind of fall into place. And I'd say, good. If I rewrite this in the multiplicative form, I have 8 or 4 times 10, 8 times 1 plus 7 times 1/10. Notice there are addition symbols just like we've always done with expanded form. Don't forget to put those in. I have seen people do this before. By people, I mean 4th graders. You've left, not you. I'm not pointing at you saying you did it. I'm just saying 4th graders in the past have done this where they've left out the addition symbol. Try not to do that because it will just lead to confusion. I promise that's not a good thing. Okay, so there we go. So 48 and 7 tenths looks like this as a multiplicative decimal form. And by the same token, looks like this in a multiplicative fraction form. Notice the only difference between those two sequences shows up right here. In one case, you're showing this in decimal form, and in the other case, the fraction form. The reason we do this, and you're going to say, but Mr. T, that's a lot of unnecessary work. I beg to differ because that 1/10 in decimal form needs to be associated with the 1/10 in fraction form. If you can make those connections, trust me when I tell you, that will make understanding decimals so much easier because that relationship of fractions and decimals will never go away. Fractions can be represented as decimals. And it gets more interesting as you go deeper into math. I won't go into that right now, but you have rational and irrational numbers, and it's based on their decimal pattern. So there it is. On to the next slide. What do you say? Actually, there is no next slide. This is going to be it. You are going to have to fill in some blanks today on the work set. One thing I want you to remember here is that you need to know, oops, I don't know where the M went. The M went away, not the M that we know and love, but the M as in the letter. Okay, you need to know them all. You need to know how all of these things work. So here's my suggestion. Leave this slide open on your computer. If you're in Google Meet, I will project it for you. In fact, what I discovered today, how exciting is this? I discovered I can project my screen, the same screen image, to both presentations, both Zoom, Main Room, and Google Meet. The only problem with Zoom is that most of you guys are in breakouts, and so you're not going to see it. And also, if you're in the main room of Zoom, I'm wondering what you're doing over there. If only because it's like, okay, well, you could see the same and hear from me just as well in Google Meet. Yeah. Anyway, this is a really good slide. It's a good, it's kind of like the ultimate in reference. So keep an eye on it. Anyway, we're 10 minutes in. It's time to get to work. Quit horsing around, Mr. C. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.